Hey, Jeremy. Thanks
Hey,
for doing. I wanted to ask you about Arshdeep Bains. You used him heavily in the playoffs, and I just want to talk to you about his progression from the start of the year. What are some of the things that you saw him grow into as a player that maybe weren't there at the start of the year with you?
yeah, as you said, we gave him a lot of responsibility as the year went on, and certainly in the playoffs. But he earned it with his development throughout the year. I thought obviously defensive play away from the puck, but like wall play, board battles, finding ways to advance the puck, managing the puck through the neutral zone. He's a skilled player, an offensive player. Used to making plays at the level he's playing at before, but just learning how to do that while also being reliable, with his puck plays and finding, when you're playing against good players, forcing them to defend and finding ways to play in the offensive zone. That's how you win. And, he took huge strides there as the year went on. And obviously he earned his spots on the special teams too, both power play and penalty kill. He became one of our, top four, the four forwards that we kind of use predominantly. He was one of them on the penalty kill, and then power play. Obviously, he was. We used him a lot there too. So it's really good first year for him, and now it's up to him to build on it.
How much of that growth do you attribute to the development staff out there?
Yeah, we got a great group. I think it's part of. I think we're a team too, right? We have some really good people that come out here, whether it's the Sedines or Mackenzie Braid. It's a really good group, and we're all kind of working together, different voices sometimes, or sharing the load. And it's together with the coaching staff. It's a fun place to come to work, and I think the players they enjoy it too.
We'll go next to Patrick Johnston, Post Media.
Hey, Jeremy, in a similar vein, what did you see from Niels Höglander? That player that we saw in the playoffs was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I thought he had a big, half season here. He came down, and it's always a shock to the system. And certainly, he's played a lot of NHL games without playing an American League game. And so I think that was an adjustment for him. But to his credit, I thought he really dug in and was willing to take feedback. And I mean, you saw, that his play in the playoffs, like that was a really big step for him. Just how hard he played, and that game will transfer to the NHL level, in my opinion. And obviously, there were some penalties there in the last series, but at the same time, I thought he was on the line as far as his physical play and competitiveness. And I'd rather have a player. I'd rather have to pull the reins on a player like that than try to have to dial him up. I think you can win with guys like that.
Patrick had told us at one point that, as much as anything, it was Niels needed to go sort of find some confidence in his game again. But, you mentioned that there were specific things to work on. What were the things that you think were the most impactful in terms of how he improved and how he was such an influential player in the end?
Yeah, I think just managing the game, understanding, certain situations where you can attack, try to create something off the rush, make something happen. And then there's sometimes where you just got to get the puck in deep. And that's part of, having maturity as a player, that you sometimes just got to fold and, change, let the next group on, put the next group in a better spot. And I think he definitely took strides there, and just awareness defensively too. Like I thought as the year went on, he did a good job of being locked in, understanding his role, understanding his responsibilities away from the puck when it was time to defend. And it was nice to see.
Going next to Chris Faber, Canucks Army.
Hey, Jeremy. I think as reporters, we watch a lot of the games. We watch a lot of your team play. But one thing I can honestly say I don't understand much of is goaltending. So I'm curious to get your thoughts and kind of what you saw from Marco Terenius this year working with the goaltenders and how that relationship was between him and the two goalies or three goalies that you had this year.
Yeah, Marco did a great job. You know, it's a little bit the task in the American League is you do have turnover, and obviously it's at all positions. But you know, you think when you're dealing with goaltenders, it's a lot about building the relationship and the trust, so that you can give the feedback that they need. And I think Marco did a great job there, and I thought our guys really improved as the year went on and played with confidence. And I thought, you know, from the first half to the second half, the performance of our goalies was that was a big improvement, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. So it was, you know, as well, like coming over, you know, different culture, different working environment compared to where he'd been before. I thought Marco did a great job adjusting, and you know, deserves a lot of credit.
And how did your relationship with Danila Klimovich grow over the year? Because it felt like there was a lot more progression in his game this season than there was last year. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on how that relationship grew this season, and I guess how much more work this guy has to do before he can become an NHLer.
Yeah, well, he's, you know, he's still a young guy, and it's a hard league to play in. I think it's underestimated, you know, the challenge that it is for young players to succeed here. And you know, so obviously as a coach, you're just trying to build trust and build a relationship. And obviously I think the language thing, he's gotten a lot better. So it's much easier to communicate. He felt that as the year went on, he was better able to understand what we're asking him, and obviously do, you know, lots of individual meetings and showing clips and things. And I think it's not really it's not getting in the way anymore, which is I think really important. And it's a big year for him. I think, you know, he said 2 years of pro, and he should understand sort of the standard that's expected. And you know, I'm excited to see how he responds to that challenge. But you know, obviously, you know, he's not there yet. But if you look at the start of the year to now, he certainly took some big strides, and that's exciting.
Chris, go ahead there.
Okay, going again. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting next year as well. You've talked about it throughout the season so much with how much changeover you can have at the AHL level. But I mean, if there's not just a ton of injuries at the NHL level, you should have a pretty solid group of young players for next year. How good is that going to be for development if it is the same kind of group of young guys with the addition of, you know, a Cole McWard, Aiden McDonough, these players that got some NHL experience? You might have them for a longer time next season. How important is that for development if you kind of keep these young players together from the start of the season and, you know, get some real time with them?
Yeah, I mean, it's always exciting to get guys back, because you can, it helps to get that, you know, the details and the culture and the mentality that you want in your team to take hold a little bit quicker. And so I'm looking forward to that. And obviously we got a bunch of guys who are going to come into training camp trying to make the Canucks, and that's what their focus should be, to do everything they can to make it a really competitive camp. But whoever we get, we should have quite a few returning players, and that's a big deal. You know, we are going to have, I expect, some more rookies, some more young guys, and I think it's, again, getting back to the quality of the league, like, it's going to take time. Like, it's not, I would be surprised if these guys come in and immediately are ready to just take the league over. Like, it just doesn't happen very often. So, but that's an exciting challenge too, to help them adjust to the league as quickly as possible, and learn what it takes to be a pro and make an impact at our level, and then get better as the year goes on, and you know, hopefully have an excellent team again. But we don't, you don't just get to pick up where you left off. In a lot of ways, you got to start over. And I think it's important to not take that for granted. There's a lot of work that will need to be done. And, right now, the message is it starts with how we train in the off season, and that'll be, that message will be delivered for sure.
And just wanted to follow up another one with Arshdeep Bains. We saw a lot of progression in his game, and I know you guys have kind of talked about breaking down his game at the start of the season and making him change it. With those thoughts of kind of, working on his strengths, but also working on some different things that he's going to have to do at the next level, do you see him being a guy that's challenging for NHL minutes next year?
I don't know. I mean, I think he took the step this year. He was in and out at the beginning of the year. And by the end of the year, he's one of our most important players. So part of that's the kind of summer that he has with his training and continuing to improve his skating. But, I think the challenge to him is to come into camp and show where he is and get on the radar as far as getting NHL games. But he absolutely made huge strides. But again, you don't get to just pick up where you left off. You gotta almost start from zero, and that'll start in camp, but it's going to be how he prepares in the summer too with his training.
We've got a couple more follow-ups here still. I'll go first to Patrick Johnston, Post Media.
Jeremy, not your first time coaching in the AHL. I'm just curious how this experience went for you compared to your year and a bit in Rockford. What you learned as a coach, perhaps.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have some more experience, which is always that's helpful. Obviously, we went to the conference final that year, and this year we didn't get there. But I also thought like this division we played in was outstanding. I mean, extremely competitive. Some top teams. Even like Colorado, Ontario, Bakersfield, like really, really great for the development of our young players to play so many games against that quality of competition. So I thought we benefited from that this year, and our players will have as well. The downside to that is you get some pretty tough draws come playoff time. And so, I think disappointing, to not be able to advance because I think to get, another 5, 6, 10 games, playoff games for this group would have been extremely valuable. But, to have that test against Calgary here, and I thought it was a great series, a tight series, that we'll take some lessons from that.
You mentioned how you're assessing and development of players. Are you able to assess yourself as a coach? Is that something that you're doing as an ongoing thing?
Well, I'm trying to get better all the time. That's for sure. And that's actually stuff, things you do during the meetings. You ask for feedback from players, and they often have some pretty good ideas or thoughts on things they like, things they didn't like. And I think the weeks after the season, that's a good time to look at what you did during the season and how you can improve and maybe come up with some new ideas, whether it's from other teams or watching NHL playoffs. We got obviously the staff in Vancouver who is a resource for us. So I think if you're not getting better, you're getting worse, especially as a coach, because the game's constantly changing.
All right, and looks like we just have one more at the moment from David Quadrelli again, Canucks Army.
Jeremy, I want to talk to you about Arsh again. How much of his development this year came down to just player buy-in and his commitment to growing?
Yeah, well, I think probably every player, they have a big impact on, whether the amount of improvement they can have during the year. And I think a lot of it is just being open to the feedback they're getting and then responding to it. And I mean, he was very open to it, and you could see the adjustments he was making game to game, shift to shift. And I think that probably comes down to his hockey IQ, very intelligent player. understands the game. And so he can take the feedback that he gets and respond to it immediately. And so it just speeds up the process. So, you know, that's encouraging for his future. And you know, we're all hoping he can become a Canuck and play in the NHL for a long time.